بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome to today's show, Missing Ingredients, here on Huda TV with your host Abdur-Raheem McCarthy. We started the prayer. We're looking into what's been missing from our prayer, the missing ingredients. And before we start and continue today, just a quick reminder that you can check out our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/missing ingredients. Want to hear from you, to hear your input of what you benefited from this show and how the effect the change has had on you and your prayer. And also you can keep up with me personally on my Facebook page and via Twitter as well, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. The missing ingredients. We've started the prayer, stage 3. We said Allahu Akbar, and we have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with takbiratul ihram, and everything's changed now. We signed a contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either one, we're going to be honest and we're going to fulfill with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or one, we're going to try to cheat our way out. Cheat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just look how it sounds, but it's the reality. You're either honest with Allah when you say Allahu Akbar and you submit. And I want to point something out. When you go back to the first episode, we mentioned there's 5 different people, 5 different categories when it comes to their prayers. And see which one you were when you started and where you are now. Because the middle ones, the first 2 are in a bad situation. The third, a little bit better. The fourth, excellent. And the 5th, obviously, outstanding. Simply outstanding. However, what we need to look at is how honest we are when we say Allahu Akbar. Because the reality is, even if you're not successful 100% in your prayer, but you're struggling and you're striving to be successful, that's a great thing. Even when you go to work now, because we mentioned in the last episode about the one who clocks into work. He signs that contract, he comes in, he swipes in, and does nothing during the prayer. He's going to get nothing back. He's going to get fired from his job. But even if he's not a great employee, but he struggles, he strives, he does his best, you're going to see the employee is going to respect him. He's going to try to help him out. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your creator, He has promised you that if you strive for Him, He will guide you to His ways. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Those who strive for us, verily we will guide them to our ways. And verily Allah will be with the doers of good. So if you're struggling, you're striving to perfect your prayer, to pray like the Prophet ﷺ did, to find this missing pleasure that you've been missing, to reach the next level, the higher levels of your prayer, to reach the high level, the highest level of ihsan, as the Prophet ﷺ described it, أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. To worship Allah as if you can see Him. And if you can't see Him, then verily He can see you. When you make that connection directly between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You said Allahu Akbar, you submit it, and you're standing there. Ask yourself, how honest are you? Would you try to cheat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your prayer? We have to be careful. We have to focus. In today's episode, we're going to go deeper into that stance. After we've said Allahu Akbar, and we've made a commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to focus on this prayer, and we've put our heads down in a humble statement, a humble stance. We put our heads down in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to reflect on this stance. We said this is a show to reflect on the meanings, the inner secrets behind the prayer. Let's reflect on this stance when we're looking down at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This humble stance, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned, he said from the alama of al-hub, the sign of love, another nahu sujood, looking in the place of sujood. He said because this is a stance of haya and azama to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a stance of haya, shyness, modesty, humbleness, being shameful when you look down in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the azama of Allah, as you look down in the stance. Humbleness. And that's why Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, he mentioned when you put the hand, the right hand on the left hand, he said it's dhul bayna yaday aziz. It's a type of humbleness. Putting yourself down in front of that who is great. Lowering yourself. When you lower that gaze and you look down. And you see this now, the child in front of his parents. Or the student in front of the principal when he gets in trouble at school. He looks down like this because he knows. So this movement, it's i'tiraf. It's you knowing that you're in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's you acknowledging the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the weakness of yourself as you look down in this humble state. But it goes even deeper than that. As we're standing there in this humble state, it reminds us of something even greater. It reminds us of Yawm al-Qiyamah, of the day of judgment, the day of resurrection, when all of us will be resurrected on that great day. A day كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. A day that will be equivalent to 50,000 years. Think about that next time you're in a hurry in your salat. That stance when you're in such a hurry to get out of it and get back to the dunya. Get back to doing what you were doing. Get back in the mix and the flow of the dunya. Think about that day. كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. That stance, a day equivalent to 50,000 years. Think when you're standing there completely naked. Now you've covered your aura. Allah has covered your mistakes in this dunya just like you covered your aura in the salat. It's a reminder, we mentioned this. But on that day you're going to be sent forth completely naked. Aisha radiallahu anha, al-Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers, she found this one to be a little bit difficult because she's the modest, the taqiyya, the pious mother of the believers she was, radiallahu anha. She said, Rijal wa nisa, men and women, ya Rasulullah. Let me together. He said, Al-amr akbar min dhalik. Al-amr a'zam min dhalik, ya Aisha. He said, the affair is much greater than that. People are going to be so concerned with themselves. They're not going to have time to look at the opposite sex, naked or not. The main concern that you're going to have on that day is nafsi, nafsi, myself, myself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala broke it down for us in the Quran, in Surah Abasa. What's going to happen on that day? The reality of that day. The reality of nafsi, nafsi, myself, myself. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنُ يُغْنِيهِ. Look at these ayats. Look at these verses. Reflect on the reality of that day as you're standing there in that humble state when you're looking down at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask yourself really quick, who are the most beloved people to you in this dunya? Who do you love the most? Who is your heart attached to the most? You see those names just popped into your head? Now let's go back to these verses in Surah Al-Abasa. Let's reflect on them. On that day. On the day of judgment. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ. The day that the man will run away from his own brother, his own sister, your siblings. How much do you love them? وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ. And his own mother, his own father. And it goes deeper. وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. And your spouse, your husband or your wife, and your own children. Is there anybody in this dunya more beloved to you than these people? You will run away from them on the day of judgment. Why? لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنُ يُغْنِيهِ. To all of them on this day, he has an affair that concerns his own self. He's concerned with his own self. His main concern is how to get across that bridge that goes across the pit of the hellfire, the sirat. How to get across it and to get into the Jannah. This is his main concern. How to be successful himself. As you put your head down and you start to focus on the prayer, remember that day when you're going to be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you've covered your awrah in the dunya, you've covered your sinfulness in the dunya, all of it's going to be exposed on that day. All of it will come out. You're going to see every single thing that you did in this dunya, no matter how big or how small. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. Even the atom's weight of good or evil, you're going to see it on that day. Remember that as you're standing there. It's going to be put into a scale in front of you, a real scale, as the Prophet ﷺ described it. A scale for the good deeds and bad deeds, and whichever one has more is going to decide where you're going to go, either to the hellfire or to the Jannah. May Allah protect us. May Allah guide us all to the Jannah and protect us from the hellfire. We need to remember these things as we're standing there on that day. And we're standing there in our prayer, we need to remember that day. This stance, as we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the prayer, we're going to be standing in front of Him on the day we're going to be covered in our own sweat, depending on the deeds that we have done in this dunya. The reality of that day. We need to focus on it. Remind ourselves of that. We need to remind ourselves, we need to focus on this prayer now. We need to be successful. So if we be successful there, we're standing on Yawm al-Qiyamah. We're going to continue looking into the secrets behind the prayer. These missing ingredients that we're missing in our prayer. But after this short break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back, inshallah.
It's the essence of Islam, Tawheed, believing in the oneness of Allah, the same message that Allah sent all His prophets with since the beginning of time.
La ilaha illallah. You need Tawheed, especially at the time of distress, at the time of need.
Tawheed first with Imam Kareem Abu Zayd in Ramadan only on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this episode of Missing Ingredients. The ingredients that are missing from our prayers that we're trying to fill in so we can find the pleasure in our prayer, so we can find the coolness of our eyes in our prayers the Prophet ﷺ used to. Before the break, we were talking about the reality of that stance and standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. What a great reminder it is to us. And we're going to go a little bit even deeper now. Another thing that we're training ourselves to do from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we look at the place of our sujood during the salat. As we're standing there in our salat, we look down to the place that we're making sujood, not to the right, not to the left, not up, not in the front, but to the place of sujood. What is the hikmah behind this? What is the wisdom? There's so much that we gain from this. Some of it might be apparent to a lot of us, but something I'm sure that a lot of us don't think about that much. When you're focusing on one spot, because the Prophet doesn't forbid us from looking up and down, looking around, because it distracts you. So when you focus on one spot, it's going to help you concentrate during the prayer. That might be clear to a lot of us. We don't think about it a lot. And we can see that very clearly from the people because you can see them looking around during the prayer. A'udhu billah. You're not concentrating, obviously. You're walking by in front of somebody in the masjid, and he's looking you out. He's looking at you the whole time you're going. Bro, what are you doing? You're praying. You're in your prayer. People are distracted. So this helps you concentrate on your prayer. When you're focused on that place, you're in the sujood where you're about to put your head on the ground. That's the key thing. But let's go even deeper. What else is it helping us do? What else is it helping us control? Teaching a Muslim a very important thing in life. The importance of controlling your gaze. غض البصر. The importance of controlling your gaze in life. Just as you control your gaze during this prayer, it's an action of tarbiyah, training you as a Muslim to be ready to do it in real life. Look at all the evil that comes from not controlling your gaze. All the corruption to your heart from not controlling your gaze. Black dot after black dot after black dot of evil and sin upon your heart from not controlling your gaze. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created you, knows what's good for you and what's bad for you. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. Tell the believers to lower their gaze. What comes after in the same verse? وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. How are they going to control their body parts from not falling into haram, into fornication, if they don't control their gaze first? The first step to zina, to fornication, is not controlling the gaze. Alhamdulillah, reflect on these means of the prayers, my brothers and sisters in Islam. Because when you control that gaze in the prayer, it's going to help you, inshallah ta'ala, control the gaze outside of the prayer. This is the reality that we don't focus on. These are the ingredients we're missing. It has a serious effect on our life, outside of the prayer as well. Controlling the gaze, lowering the gaze, the effect it has on you. The prayer is training you to take you to the next level as a Muslim in all aspects of life. We're going to go back to that verse. We're going to go back to that verse that I told you. And we keep repeating this verse as a way to check ourselves, to check our prayer if we're benefiting or not. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. Verily the prayer, it protects you, it stops you, it forbids you from doing that which is immoral and that which is evil. Lowering the gaze, right there. Are you lowering your gaze? Are you looking at which is haram? Don't get me wrong, my brothers and sisters in Islam. The reality is it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here with you and tell you that it's easy. It's difficult. Wallahi al-azim. All of us face that problem. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless some of us to be stronger through our iman, that we can lower the gaze. Because in the same verse, in Surah An-Nur, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to control our gaze, look at the beauty of the Quran. Ya salam. The amazement of the Quran. Look at this verse. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Tell the believers, lower their gaze. Protect their private parts. Obviously by lowering the gaze. ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. This is more purifying for them. Purifying their heart through lowering the gaze. And Allah tells us that He is khabir at the end. Well acquainted with that what you do. Just like you train yourself and you're ashamed in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be looking around. I mean, I'm amazed sometimes you see people like this, looking around during their prayer. A'udhu billah. You have no shame in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just like you train yourself to do this, be ashamed outside of the prayer. Because you can have your shades on, driving down the road, and you see a beautiful lady. And your wife's in the car with you. She's like, don't look. You're like, well, I'm not looking, baby. Because she can't see your eyes in the car. I'm not looking. No, astaghfirullah. I wouldn't. But Allah knows. Allah is khabir. He's well acquainted. He knows what you're doing. Train yourself in the prayer to be a true Muslim in life. Be a soldier in the prayer. Be a true soldier for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outside of the prayer by lowering your gaze. You ever thought about that? From this tarbiyah, this training in the prayer is training you as a Muslim. The inner secrets of the prayer. Because what happens when you don't lower the gaze outside of the prayer, it's corrupting your prayer inside. Your heart is full of corruption, full of mischief. Looking at it as haram, wallah, has such a negative effect on you. And I know it's difficult. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you, it's difficult. It's not easy. We have to strive. And if we strive, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help us. He's going to make us stronger. If we don't strive, then we won't receive the assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has guaranteed us. If we strive, that He will help us and He will be with us, inshallah ta'ala. The next step. After this is the istiftah, the opening of the prayer. The opener. The dua of istiftah. which is the dua you use before you go in the prayer, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the first rak'ah. After you say Allahu Akbar and you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you lower that gaze and you focus on the place of sujood, you start by making the dua of istiftah. Once again, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had several du'as that he used to use in this opening. Go back to some of the books that have been printed about the salat. Go back to Hisnul Muslim, the book of dua, and look at some of these du'as and try to memorize them. Because like we said, when you put the different flavor into, the different ingredients into your salat, and you find the pleasure behind your prayer by using a different sunnah this time, and then at Dhuhr using a different sunnah. At Asr you go back to the one you use for Salatul Fajr, then use a third one for Salatul Maghrib, and use a fourth one for Salatul Isha. And then when you get up to pray Tahajjud, use another one, like the Prophet ﷺ used to do. And you start using these different du'as, you're going to find different flavor, different meaning in your prayer. And then you need to reflect on the meanings. Reflect on the meanings of this dua. And now we're going to mention two of them. Two of these sunnahs that the Prophet ﷺ used to do in his dua istiftah, just to show you the reality and the importance of reflecting on the great meanings that these dua have. A very beautiful dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make when he would start his prayer. He would say, Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayaya kama ba'adta bayna al-mashriqi wal-maghrib. Pay attention to these meanings, ya salam. Really deep, really beautiful, these meanings of this dua. And this istiftah, they say, it's intiqal. It's taking you from what you were in the dunya into the prayer. It's getting you ready, getting you focused. So you need to focus on the meanings. And if you focus on the meanings, it's going to have such a big effect on your prayer. Wallah, it's going to change your prayer altogether. Most of us say, we just say the dua really quick. Allahumma ba'id bayna. Quickly, we just want to say it really quick and get it done. And then we go into the Fatiha. No meaning behind it. No meaning. Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayaya kama ba'adta bayna al-mashriq wal-maghrib. Oh Allah, distant me from my mistakes, just as you have distance between the east and the west. Look at these meanings. If you focus on just the first sentence of this dua, it's going to get deeper. It's a beautiful dua the Prophet ﷺ taught us. A beautiful dua that he used to say, alayhi salatu wassalam, between the east and the west. So the first thing, think about all my mistakes. You remind yourself that the sins have been put on your head, on your shoulders. Now it's time to get pumped up. It's time to focus, get in that zone, so I can get rid of these sins. I can get rid of these shortcomings. Get rid of these bad deeds. This is my chance. This is my salat. And then he continues. It's a beautiful dua, subhanAllah. Allahumma naqqini min khatayaya kama yunaqqa thawbu al-abyadu min ad-danas. Ya salam. Look at this meaning. Oh Allah, cleanse me from my mistakes, from my shortcomings. Just like the white thobe, the white garment, the white clothes is cleansed from dirt. Wallahi, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, just this dua by itself, wallahi, if we focus on it, and we focus on the meanings of it, wallahi, it will take our salat, our prayer to a whole nother level. These meanings, the Prophet ﷺ taught us. He trained us to say before our prayer. And we have to go deeper into this dua, but unfortunately, we've come to an end. The time is up for this episode. But inshallah, in our next episode, we'll continue, inshallah, talking about this dua and this istiftah, and we'll continue throughout the prayer. And until then, Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad.